Hey, Facebook family. Okay, we are here with Dr. Dean Blumberg from UC Davis Children's Hospital. We are talking about measles in California. We thank you so much for making time to come in and chat with us. I want to get our conversation rolling here on our Facebook page. Let folks know that you are joining us so that if they have any questions, you might be able to answer questions that people might have. So here's what we know just today, Doctor, that Placer County Public Health announced that they were investigating 3 cases of measles in one family in connection with recently reported cases in Butte and Tehama counties. And then we saw New York County banning unvaccinated minors, that's a headline, right? From public places so that they can, quote, contain a measles outbreak. So much to tackle here. But first, let's get to what I see Monica saying here on our Facebook page. Oh no, a week-long rash and a fever. Emergency, she says. Essentially saying we're making a big deal out of nothing. What do you say?
Yeah, I've heard parents say that too. And, you know, hopefully it is just a week-long rash and a fever, but they don't see the things I see as a specialist in the hospital. I see the bad cases. I know that worldwide, more than 90,000 children die from measles every year. So although it may be a mild disease, you're risking your child dying, getting pneumonia, having encephalitis and inflammation of the brain. That happens 1 out of every 1,000 cases. Having diarrhea and dehydration, which can be severe. This can be a deadly disease and result in severe brain damage. So yeah, I hope that the cases that we're talking about only have fever and rash, but it can be quite severe, and parents need to be aware of that.
Well, and that's why we wanted to have this conversation. That's why we wanted to bring an expert in to sit down with us and walk us through what we needed to know. So now that we're seeing some of these cases reported here in California, run down the symptoms for us one more time.
Well, it starts with the fever, and then runny nose, runny eyes, and cough. And then what happens is the development of the rash. And the rash, for healthcare providers, the rash is really typical. It starts at the top, starts on the face, and then it gradually goes down the body. And then in the mouth, there's often these particular mouth sores that are seen also. But it's really fever and rash is what are the danger signs with this. And that's what we worry about, and that's a prompt to healthcare providers.
So then what should folks do if they think they or their children perhaps have come in contact with measles?
So then if they have come in contact with measles, any sort of fever or rash, they should see their healthcare provider. And don't just walk in the front door and sit in the waiting room where a bunch of people are exposed. Call them first and let them know. They'll let you in through a side door, get you in an isolation room so that nobody else is exposed.
Wait a minute.
It's so contagious.
Say that again now. So if we feel, or if you feel that you've been exposed, call ahead, let them know. You don't have to sit in the emergency room waiting. No. They will bring you in through a special
through a side door. Measles is one of the most contagious diseases known to man. It's more contagious than Ebola. And so it's really scary in that way. And so when it gets into a population that's susceptible, 90% of people are infected. So that's much more infectious than flu or the common cold or others. That's why we worry about it so much.
Okay, so young kids, not technically fully vaccinated until a certain age, right?
Well, usually it's recommended at 12 to 15 months of age is the first dose of the measles vaccine.
And then you're supposed to follow up.
The second dose at 4 to 6 years of age.
Just how effective is this vaccine? Because, you know, this is a controversial topic.
So you get this vaccine, the measles vaccine, that's about 95 to 97% effective for the first dose. We give 2 doses because this is so contagious. That's not good enough. That gets us up to 99% protection. And even so, 99% protection, that's not 100%. So even vaccinated people can get measles also.
And I'm just looking at some of the comments as they are coming in. Someone mentioned to me it's more than likely because they got the live vaccine. What are your thoughts?
The live vaccine is the only vaccine that we're using these days. So that's the most effective vaccine. It's a weakened form of the virus. So when people get vaccinated, they get a subclinical form of measles where they're asymptomatic, and it allows the body's own immune system to form immunity to measles.
Okay, so now let's go back to this state of emergency in this New York County where they are officially under a state of emergency under the declaration. Those who are unvaccinated and under the age of 18 will be barred from public spaces. On Facebook, D. Golden says, impossible to enforce. What do you do? Stop anyone you see under 18 and say, vaccine papers, please? You know?
Yeah, I have no idea how they're going to enforce that and what they're going to do for that. I mean, schools are different, right? Because schools, you get the immunization records ahead of time. But I don't know how they do this in a public space. But I know the reason that they're doing this is because it is so contagious.
Right.
And the issue with our vaccine rates is they're generally really good. Our vaccination rates are high. The problem is that when people choose not to vaccinate, those people tend to cluster. And so you get these counties or schools where you get these pockets of unvaccinated individuals. And this allows measles, if it's introduced, it can just go through that school or that community like wildfire.
Okay. We're seeing people writing in, talking about this topic, hundreds of folks viewing us even as we speak. And we wanted to bring you in because there's so much concern around this topic. And as we're talking about this state of emergency, if you will, that we're seeing this New York County do, you don't expect them for us here in California to be banning folks, if you will.
I've never heard of that in California, and so I don't anticipate that. And I think in California, I think our public health officials have other mechanisms to address that.
So then talk to me about those other mechanisms, because that was my next question. How do you contain a measles outbreak?
So the main thing to do is public health is very effective at doing contact tracing. So we recently had a case of measles that was diagnosed and was hospitalized at UC Davis Children's Hospital. When that child came into the hospital, into the emergency room, it was immediately recognized that it could be measles. So that child was placed in isolation, and everybody wore protective gear, masks and gloves and stuff, to make sure that there would be no further potential spread. But beforehand, that child had exposed other people. Now, public health is going to investigate all that. They're going to go find every single person that person potentially could have contacted and infected, see if they're vaccinated. If they're not, then they're going to make sure they're isolated during the time that they're potentially infected to try to limit spread.
Okay, so doctor, just to be clear, we want to stress here that we are not being alarmist, that this is a very contagious disease and that it should be taken seriously.
It needs to be taken really seriously, and also from a county public health point of view, from a resource point of view, every single case of measles that we have, it costs about $10,000 for public health to contain it and investigate it. So this can get very pricey and really stress county budgets. Another reason that really they need to take it so seriously and limit spread so that they don't have to expend more resources on this.
Holly saying, did you just say that vaccinated people can still be susceptible?
Yes, yeah, because the vaccine's not 100% effective. It's only 99% effective. So that means that vaccinated people can still have breakthrough infection. That can occur. So it's still your best protection against measles, but really, what is 100% effective?
Lisa Wilson-Clark, we thank you for your question. She wants to know, how long is the isolation time frame?
So the isolation is generally, when somebody has measles, they're contagious for 4 days before the rash till 4 days after the rash. But in terms of people who are exposed, most cases occur between 7 and 21 days after exposure. So most people are isolated between that time because they don't know when they're going to get the rash. So they have to be isolated before they're potentially symptomatic.
Okay, so there you go, Lisa. I'm having someone say, ask about shedding.
The virus is shed when people have measles. That's why it's contagious. I've also had people ask about the measles vaccine. Could that be shed and contagious? And that's not. The vaccine virus is not, the vaccine virus, somebody who's vaccinated cannot transmit that to anybody else. That doesn't occur.
Okay, so talk to us. As we saw today, Placer County investigating 3 cases of measles in one family in connection to recently reported cases in Butte and Tehama counties. New York County banning unvaccinated minors. Who knows how they're going to enforce that, but they're saying that there is a state of emergency. How would you characterize things here in California?
I think it's dicey here in California, and I'm concerned about it because we've had these cases. We know there's more cases. There were almost as many cases reported this year in the U.S. compared to the entire last year in the U.S. So I'm worried about it. And we know that in California, we have vaccine hesitant parents. We have some physicians who unethically are providing medical exemptions, which should not be granted by any conventional medicine means. And so we're really worried about this in California. We have some counties and some schools where the unvaccinated population, children, is greater than 10%. So they're ripe for, if a case of measles is introduced to that community or school, for there to be a lot of transmission.
What reason does someone have not to vaccinate?
There's been a lot of misinformation out there.
I want to understand. This is a question. Sherry Forrester wants to know, what reason does someone have not to vaccinate?
Yeah, so if somebody is, has, for example, an allergic reaction to the vaccine, a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine, then they should not be vaccinated against it. But if somebody has a minor reaction, like it hurts when they get vaccinated, a lot of vaccines hurt, that goes away in a day or two. So that's not a reason not to vaccinate. They can still be vaccinated. But many parents have a lot of fear. The vaccine's been blamed for a lot of different things. There's a lot of really truly conspiracy theories out there about the vaccine. And one of the main worries parents have is that the vaccine causes autism. Measles vaccine does not cause autism. There's been hundreds of studies that have looked at that, mainstream scientific studies, medical studies that have looked at that, involving millions of children, and they all have come to the same conclusion, that measles vaccine does not cause autism.
Dr. Dean Blumberg from UC Davis Children's Hospital chatting with us today. You got folks saying, you know, they're coming after you, sir. They say, I know they don't, you know how they feel. Some people feel anyway about it. But this is your statement, and you're saying as a professional that that's just the truth, right?
Well, that's the truth as far as science goes. So I do believe in science. I believe in math. I believe in conventional medicine. But I do not believe in fringe conspiracy theories. I do not, and I do not believe in some of these other people who spread them.
Okay, Monica Martin wants to know, does the vaccine expire?
Oh,
or is there a certain length of time? You know what I mean?
I think what she was referring to is how long does vaccine-induced immunity last?
Yeah.
And it's believed that getting the 2 doses probably lasts a lifetime. Now, this vaccine first came out in 1963, and it's been the only vaccine used in the U.S. since 1967. So we don't know that it lasts a whole lifetime yet. We have to follow, but the studies suggest that it's going to be lifetime immunity.
So you're saying these 2 doses of the vaccine can provide immunity for a lifetime.
Right. So it's like getting measles, but of course it's a weakened form of the virus so that you don't have the complications.
Still doing vaccine exemptions that they're asking.
So yeah, there are vaccine exemptions that parents can get for their children if there's a medical reason for them not to be vaccinated, and then that does comply with the law, which says that schools for children to attend schools that they need to have all the mandated vaccines.
Are there other things that people should keep in mind when we're having this conversation, because we're seeing counties, like we mentioned in New York, take the drastic step of banning folks, declaring states of emergency. What type of perspective should people have when they're trying to make a very tough decision, it seems?
I think that people need to be aware that we've been so successful with eliminating a lot of these vaccine-preventable diseases that people forget how severe they were and can't become complacent about that. And so people need to know that these vaccine-preventable diseases like measles can kill their children. Or if they don't kill them, it could result in brain damage. And the best way to protect their children is to get them vaccinated. There is no question whatsoever that the benefits of vaccination they outweigh any theoretical risks.
Okay. Anything else that I have not asked you that you think is important? Facebook family, we thank you so very much for sharing your questions with us this evening. What we wanted to do was to begin the conversation. We know that this is something that we'll be talking about in the days and weeks ahead. Is there a certain time of year where we start to see these cases pop up more than others, or is this something where you expect to see a larger spread going forward? What should we keep in mind there?
Well, you can see cases any time of year, but where we're seeing the cases now, where they're being introduced into California, is from outside the country. So people visit internationally. They go to areas of the world where there's more measles than in the U.S., and then they bring it back here. So if there's more international travel, there's more potential for introduction of cases, and we know that that's going to happen in the summer where families travel more often.
Annie wants to know, what about the children not old enough to get the vaccination? What do you recommend for them?
That's what I worry about, and that's why other people need to be vaccinated to protect those who can't be vaccinated for whatever reason because they're too young for the vaccine to work. The only thing really parents can do in that situation is stay away from sick people, stay away from anybody with a fever, and certainly a fever and a rash.
And then what about people in their 50s to 70s? Anna Stevens wants to know.
You know, most people in their 50s and 70s, even if they even if they don't know if they've been vaccinated or not, they've either had measles or probably been vaccinated. Most people born prior to 1958 have had measles because the measles vaccine came too late for them when measles was circulating widely. So they're probably safe. If they have any question, they can go to their healthcare provider, and their healthcare provider can either immunize them or do a blood test to see if they're immune.
Mike Howard, would it be better to get the vaccine separately instead of the vaccine cocktail given now?
The only way the measles vaccine is available, it's only available in 2 formulations. One is the MMR vaccine, measles, mumps, rubella. Rubella is German measles. Or another combination is the measles, mumps, rubella plus varicella, chickenpox vaccine. So those are the only ways that you can get it. Both of those are safe vaccines.
Okay. Anything else that we've not talked about? I wanted to try to make sure that we got any questions that we had in from our Facebook viewers who were joining us. But I also wanted you to have an opportunity to speak directly to folks at home and tell them what you think they need to know. You said you're concerned.
I'm concerned. I think it's important for people to know that measles is potentially dangerous. Don't intentionally expose your child to measles. That's a dangerous thing to do. Don't take a chance. They haven't seen what I've seen, which is the complications that kids have from measles. Get your kids vaccinated. It's the best way to keep them safe.
Take it from you, you're saying this is not just, as we saw Monica say, a week-long rash and fever and you're done.
Right. It can be much worse than that. Don't take a chance.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, Facebook family.